Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Illinois High School Football Playoff Preview. We got Highlight Zone producer Brian Stocking here in his 20th season here at the Highlight Zone. Congratulations, by the way. And Kevin Corey, photojournalist for us. Yeah, he's on 5. Yeah, there we go.
You guys are catching up to me.
So, guys, playoffs.
Playoffs? We're talking about playoffs?
Perfect time of the year. It's starting to get chilly outside. Feels like fall, feels like the playoff season.
And in Illinois, they do the playoffs right. You've got 8 classes, 32 teams. They play on Friday, a couple of games on Friday, a lot of them on Saturday afternoon. Crisp hitting football. It's the greatest time of the year.
It's time of the year where I get to see the state of Illinois because we're going to Chicago and Bloomington.
and Stark County.
Yeah. A lot of traveling this time of year. Let's get to it. No teams in 8A or 7A for us. We're going to start in 6A. Rock Island making it to the playoffs. They were 7-2 this year. A very impressive offense for them and an improving defense as the year went on a little bit.
That could be their Achilles heel. Rock Island's offense is tremendous. Alex Jacobs, Jacob Ellis. Jacobs is a dual threat. He can run or pass and does both with exceptional ability. The defense, though, it could be their bane. They've struggled with defense against teams that can move the ball. Edwardsville, Quincy put 52 on them. They did shut down Galesburg, who's got a great offense. The question is, can that occur throughout the playoffs? They play transfractional South. The Rebels were at 7-1 to end the year, and they don't play many games. Only 3 of them have been decided by 4 points or less. Rocky's got the advantage there because they played more closer games.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Rocky, it's a quiet 7-2. It feels like it kind of snuck up, and I was like, oh, really? They're 7-2. But their 2 losses came to ranked 8A team Edwardsville and ranked 7A team Quincy. So the teams that they lost to were bigger schools, good schools. The teams that they beat are teams that they should beat. So it's going to be interesting as the playoffs go on to see how they do. Yeah, although they do. That Galesburg win looks a lot bigger now.
And a lot better. That Galesburg beat Peoria, but the question for Rocky will be their defense. They've got the offense. Their offense can compete with anybody. The question is, can their defense?
Yeah. Mario Forrest and company have been improving each week back there, and they need to keep improving.
Yeah, speaking of Galesburg, the 7 seed here in this bracket, they could potentially face Rock Island in a little later on in the bracket. What do you guys see from the Silver Streaks there?
They're definitely riding high. I mean, they beat the top team in the state and the class below them.
Yeah.
And they won themselves a home game for that. So it's going to be a great shot for them.
And that wasn't a fluke. Oh, they got a break here or there. They really outplayed Peoria throughout that whole game. They had a 14-0 lead. Peoria came back, tied it. Galesburg went ahead. It kept going back and forth. They play the Greyhounds from Chicago Hubbard, who are on a 6-game win streak in the season. Hubbard scored 49 points in 5 of those games, 4 times over 50, but Galesburg's got the offense that can match them. DeAndre Morin is a great running back. They've got Caleb Clay, I believe, is the tight end wide receiver. The question, though, is can their quarterback get healthy because I believe he was out last night.
Yeah, he was, and also Morin was out too, but Clark Hawkins stepped up and was huge last night. So they know if Ross can't go, they got a good guy to fill in.
Yeah, Clark Hawkins.
But you'd like to, you got your playoff, you'd like your A guys in there. And they're playing a Chicago Hubbard team that on paper they look high scoring, they look like they have a tough defense, but it's the Chicago schools. We never know what we're going to get from the Chicago schools.
Yeah, it's a bag of tricks sometimes.
It's always good for a team to beat a really good team right before the playoffs, too. That gives you a lot of confidence, gets the wheels turning a little bit. You never know what a team like that can do.
And they definitely should have confidence because Coach can sit in the locker room and say, you just proved there's no team in the state that can beat you if you guys play up to your potential.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move to 5A now. Sterling has just been a treat to watch all season long, and they had a thrilling game Friday night to end the regular season. I mean, this team can do it all pretty much.
That was a wonderful game. It was one of the best games I have ever shot, and talk about a team that's going into the postseason high. They are. I mean, they knocked off DeKalb, who's ranked above them. I mean, they are a playoff-tested team. They beat DeKalb, they beat Rochelle, they beat Geneseo, they beat Pekin, they beat Sycamore. All these are playoff teams.
And so that 9-0
that 9-0 is very, very, very good. And Trey Morris runs the read option to perfection for them.
And they've got 4 players that can carry the ball with that are excellent. Trey Morris, who we talked to, the quarterback. Nyrell Sullivan has over 700 yards. Latrell Vaughn has over 10 touchdowns. Andrew Spalding has over 500 yards. Turner Morse, who's the wide receiver, has 6 touchdown pass receptions. They are a great team, and Sterling almost gets a bye because Chicago Westinghouse, the Warriors, haven't won on the field since September 24th. Their only win since then was a forfeit. So, I mean, the Warriors are coming in, and they're going to be playing a Sterling team that is going to be absolutely rolling because they beat DeKalb last night. They could have easily fallen in that game. They came back, resolved, won that game. Sterling could be playing in the state final.
Yeah, looking at their side of the bracket, there is not one team on that list that they do not match up well with. And this team's playing with a chip on their shoulder. Last year they expected to go farther, and they kind of laid an egg and got knocked out. But this team's playing with some passion this year. And standing ovation to John Schlemmer. I mean, what you have done with this team. I mean, Sterling's always been a great program, but they are playing
They've gone to a new
right
level,
now.
and if they
An
win,
amazing choice to go for 2 last night.
Absolutely.
In the
I was just
DeKalb
going to
game.
say
That was
Come
awesome.
on, that was awesome.
and if they win, they play either Woodstock North or Rich Central, both who played teams in our area. Woodstock North got by Rock Falls in overtime. There's controversy on how that game ended. Rich Central and Allman were in a track meet 49-42. I mean, Sterling's going to have the offense and defense to handle both of those teams. I think Sterling could be hoisting some state gold and be unbeaten at the end of the year.
That'd be something. I got to get the Tom Osborne reference in there. Nebraska grad. I love the going for 2, John Schlemmer. That was amazing. Geneseo this year. This was a team that I thought anyway that could make a deep playoff run. At the beginning of the year, they were just rolling teams, and then they got to Sterling. And they kind of, I don't know what happened there, but the wheels kind of started to come off a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. They started off so hot, and then they just came undone. Jordan Jackson's their leading rusher, 700 yards, 11 touchdowns. They've really struggled against Rochelle, against Morris, against Sterling, and most of those losses weren't close.
Pretty,
They were pretty big margins. They played Troy Triad. And Triad, the Knights have won 6 games, 30 points in all 6 wins, 21 points combined in their losses, so it's either feast or famine, and they've only had 1 game decided by 8 points. Geneseo should have the advantage in that one.
All right. But let's just say this time of the year, the Maple Leafs know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
State record 40th trip to the playoffs. So they know what to do. Their defense needs to step up and really do something. They have given up 215 points this year. Their last 3 years, they've given up 68, 57, 105. I mean, that's a big number.
If they win,
no shutouts.
If they win, they'll play Morris in the second. They should play Morris in the second round. That will be a revenge game.
You're looking at the second round. I'm looking all the way out here because Sterling is up here, Geneseo's down here, Champagne's out here, and where they meet.
Peoria is in the middle there, and remember they were number 1 in the state. So,
All right, guys, let's move to 4A here before we start fighting back and forth.
we're not fighting. This is good stuff.
Dixon coming in the 9 seed here. They had a good year, 7-2. Obviously, you look ahead. You always look ahead, like Stock has been doing here, and you got the number 1 seed looming in the distance. But what do you guys see out of Dixon here, the Dukes?
Dixon's going to be able to run past the Tars of South Shore. We have seen South Shore this year. They played Geneseo, and Geneseo ran
destroyed.
for 441 yards. Arthur Cox is Dixon's go-to man. 19 touchdowns. He had 5 of them last night. Noah Wilcox, a very good quarterback. He can possess the ball. He runs it and throws it quite well. But Dixon should win against South Shore easily.
It's a nice high-tempoed offense that Dixon runs too. So they got the cardio that they can run teams to death with. And their only losses came to Genoa Kingston and Rockford Lutheran. Kingston's 9-0, Rockford Lutheran 7-2. I mean, so they lost to good teams, and they beat who they should. They also, we thought they'd be classed in 5A. They're down in 4A. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
All right, let's move on to Kewanee, making it to the postseason on a last-second win last night, scoring with 2 seconds left
in their
on the
season.
clock. Unbelievable.
They came into the game 5-3. They had 30 playoff points. Probably weren't going to go to the playoffs if they didn't win. The game with Rockridge, back and forth, just up and down. Both teams were sensational last night. Rockridge scores with about 2.5 minutes, makes it 48-45. Nick Sheets leads them down the field, scores with 2 seconds left. They could have kicked a field goal and gone to overtime. No, they're going to go for it. They win the game. Nick Sheets, 6 touchdowns, 386 yards. And here's the thing with Sheets. He's a senior. He started as a freshman when they were 0-9 and got beat up. Got beat up the next 2 years as they were learning how to win. This year, they were down 20 to Hall. Their season's over if they lose to Hall. He says no, brings them back. They beat Hall. They've won 4 in a row. They are unstoppable. He's got 17 touchdowns, a school record, almost 1,600 yards, and he's gone to the Russell Wilson camp and the Manning Passing Academy as a kid, so he knows how to throw that football.
Those are two guys that know how to win a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably definitely one of the best in the state, and when you got him under center, I mean, anything can happen. They're already playoff tested. They already played their first playoff games. Like you said, if they lost, they were sitting at home.
And Stephen Early is Sheets' favorite receiver, and they've also got I forget his first name, Malbacon, who plays defense and offense who plays very great on defense as well.
The problem they got is that team that's scheduled up against them, that Chicago Phillips team. They can go down the road and ask Geneseo how good that Phillips team is, because Phillips did a number on them last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, one of the few Chicago teams that you worry about.
Yeah, that Chicago team, we know who they are.
All righty, let's move to Class 3A now, guys. Mercer County, lots of history here with this program. What about this year's team that makes them formidable in the playoffs?
It's early season. They played a lot of close games, so they got a lot of experience in that. And then late in the season, they had a lot of blowouts. They're a potent offense. Jacob Dellett and Wyatt Kellogg, great 1-2 punch in the backfield. They're tough to stop.
Yeah, we've seen Dellett a lot on the highlights, throwing down the field. Ben Nichols also. Also, the thing about Mercer County is they love playing at George Pratt Field. But they're even better on the road. They're undefeated on the road. They're 5-0. They shut out Princeville last night. The team they're playing, Paxton Buckley Loda, the Panthers have scored 42 points 5 times, 61 twice at home both times. And Mercer County's got to go there. It's going to be a very tough game. But if any team can shut down the Panthers, I think it's Mercer County.
Well, you mentioned them liking to play on the road. Playing on the road for Mercer County is different for a lot of teams playing, because they bring the crowd. I mean, that Aledo, the Westmer crowd that comes every week, shaking the milk jugs full of coins. I mean, they're usually louder than the home teams.
Yeah, and Merco does play well on the road, and they've got a great playoff history. And Andrew Hofer was the coach at Polo. This is his first year at Mercer County. They haven't really missed a beat. They've played real well this year.
And I think they kind of lucked out with seeding, because if they do get past Paxton Buckley Loda, then Immaculate Conception will have to come to George Pratt.
Yeah, that will be a wild scene that day.
All right, should be fun. All right, moving to Class 2A now. Lots of area teams in this bracket, including undefeated Sterling Newman here. They've been impressive to watch all year, especially that run game. And, that's including the quarterback. And they even pitch it to the wide receivers sometimes. So wide receivers or tailbacks or I-backs, whatever you want to call it. They got a lot of talent on that team. Yeah,
they have 5 running backs who've gained over 220 yards, 7 who are over 135 yards. So they've distributed the ball in the backfield. We talked about passing, distributing the ball. They do it in their backfield. Eli Luffelman is the key cog in that. 678 yards, 10 touchdowns. But here's the thing about about Newman. Their defense is even probably more renowned than their offense this year. They've got a
and that's saying something.
They came into last night's game with a plus 20 turnover margin. They intercepted Peru St. Bede 4 times, and St. Bede's got a pretty good team. Also, last night, there was talk about, remember at the beginning of the season, we were talking about they were going to go to a spread offense, so they were going, they were going 21st century, and they only had 2 touchdown passes coming into the season through the 8 games. Last night, Lyndon Beasley, 2 touchdown passes in the first half to John Wilson. Newman is, hello Newman, hello victory.
Yeah, it's Sterling could be having a Friday, Saturday party in Champaign, because not only does Sterling High School have a good chance of getting there, Newman, I've seen a lot of good Newman teams. This team is really good. And of course, on my notes, like I always have for Newman, Mike Poposi. That's all you need to say. There's no coach better.
And Poposi's team, if they win and Peru St. Bede upsets their opponent, would meet in the second round at the Academy. But they beat the Academy last night pretty badly. So, but he's got an unbelievable team there this year.
Absolutely. Moving down the bracket, the 4-13 matchup, Orion What do you guys see out of them?
Good question. This team's been up. This team's been down. They've lost.
All you can say
They've
about it.
lost 2 of their last 3. I don't know what's going on with this team. Craig Matson, their quarterback, has done a phenomenal job this season. He almost lost his job earlier this year, and that kind of lit a fire under him. And he came out and turned it on the next 2 games against Bureau Valley and Rock Ridge, and then they kind of flattened out again.
Yeah, they struggled last night with Riverdale. Drake Schultz is their key cog at running back. He's got 13 touchdowns, over 1,200 yards. He's just 103 yards from setting the all-time Orion rushing record for a career. He is their bellwether in the backfield. The question, though, is can their defense stop Deer Creek Mackinac? And that's going to be a tough order. Deer Creek Mac has scored 35 points in every game. The Chiefs have also pitched 5 shutouts. So Orion's going to have to bring their offense of A game, and their defense is going to have to step up, or they could be having a very short stay in the playoffs.
DMAC's only loss this year was Week 9 to Tri-Valley by this much.
Yeah, and Tri-Valley
is returning to state champions,
Absolutely.
and they're number 1 in the state. So DMAC, it's going to be a tough test for Orion.
Let's talk about a team that's made it to the state semis last year, Anawan Weathersfield. What about them makes them, they only have the 1 loss this year. What about them just makes them, a contender this season?
Bryce Bumfrey is an astounding quarterback. He can run and pass. He has 10 touchdowns passing and rushing. Also, his 2 favorite receivers are Ben Shaw and Brandon Shaw and Ben Burridge. They do everything real well. They can run, they can pass, and then their defense and special teams always seemingly makes a play, always seemingly gets into the end zone, and they've been just rolling through the Lincoln Trail. Last night they were up 42-0 on West Central, who's a pretty decent team in the first quarter.
Yeah, they've went up on a couple teams 40-0 in the first quarter. And this team, I mentioned Sterling playing with a chip on their shoulder. This team, I think, is really playing on a chip because they lost in the semis last year to Tri-Valley in a close game on a field that I still don't think the game should have been played on because it was iced over mud pit.
They play the Sparclones
But they're
in the first round, the Sparclones.
The
And they've
Sparclones.
in their
What
last
is a
they've
spark
won
clone?
they've
Maybe that's
won,
the next show.
they've won 3 games.
show on
They've won
Spark
their
Clones.
last 3 games with 52 points in 2 of the last 3. But I think, like Kevin was saying, Anawan Weathersfield is just defensively and offensively, they could very well be also making the trip to Champaign.
You look at this possible matchup here between Newman and Anawan going on later in the bracket as well. It should be fun. What are these other matchups? I mean, you got Fulton, you got Eastland, Pearl City, you got Rock Ridge, and you got Knoxville all in here as well. Just who out of those teams do you guys think has the best shot to make a deep run here?
Even though they're a 14 seed, Rock Ridge, I mean, they're a full team. But the team they're playing, Eastland Pearl City, nobody saw this one coming.
No.
They were 2-7 last year after winning the state championship the year before. I think everybody was expecting 2-7 again this year. Instead, they get 8-1, and that's going to be one of the best games. That game and the Fulton Moments game are going to be really, really good games.
Yeah, I think you could see all our local teams in that area advance. Knoxville, Case Hennepin, they've got a wild offense that just scores a lot of points. They're playing Chicago Hope, the Eagles, who the only loss was to Ottawa Marquette. Fulton's playing Momise, the Redskins. The Redskins have won 4 in a row, but Fulton, they lost to West Hancock today, but they were 7-1 going into that game. They've got a 2-head monster in the backfield. Tyler Sweeney has over 800 passing yards. Michael Pitti has also over 800 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns. And that Eastland Pearl City Rock Ridge game is going to be astounding. You got Keegan Schubert for the Wildcats. He's their top running back. Rock Ridge, you look at it, they've got Riley Federer, over 1,000 yards rushing, 18 rushing touchdowns. Last night he had 5 touchdowns total, 3 of them by rushing. Nathan Parcha has over 1,000 yards. Xavier Calvin has 7 touchdowns. Okay, Kendall also had a big game. That Rock Ridge Eastland Pearl City game, they better have a couple of people backing up the scoreboard after it because it's going to be, they might need them.
Yeah, 7 of these 16 teams in this half of the bracket are our viewing area teams. So our chances are looking good at a trip to Champaign on Black Friday.
All right, moving to Class 1A now. A lot of teams in this bracket as well. Not quite as many in Class 2A in our area anyway. The team that's kind of the calling card for our area anyway is Stockton, coming in 9-0 here, the number 3 seed on this side. What makes Stockton so good that they've ended the season 9-0?
Their defense. Their defense has been astounding all year. They've had 4 shutouts, and they're playing a Salt Fork South.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Salt Fork, they're 4-2 in their last 6 games, but Stockton is so good. And they're in a tough conference. The Northwest Upstate Illini Conference is one of the best conferences in Class 1A. They always seemingly have great teams in that conference.
Yeah, 3 of Stockton's wins against playoff teams. Polo, they won 50-6. Milledgeville, they won 44-0. And Freeport-Aquin, they beat 60-22. I mean, they know how to play. Right above them in the bracket, Stark County. That's a team that's looking for revenge. Made it to the state finals last year. John Groder, their quarterback, goes down early. They have a hard time fighting back with it. This year they start out slow. Coach makes a change. They move Groder to receiver, bring Trace Tuthill back to quarterback, and all of a sudden, boom, they're on fire. And Tuthill has not only Groder, but Logan Knobloch, who ended up playing quarterback in that state game last year. And they got some offensive weapons. They're a scary 7 seed.
And Logan Knobloch last night had a couple of touchdown runs. Stark County has won their last 5 games, and they've turned it on. They were 1-3, and really there was a lot of questions. What's wrong with Stark County? And the Rebels have just gotten amazing on offense, and their defense has gotten better. They're playing the Warriors from Elgin Westminster Christian, who won their last 2. They've allowed 22 points in the last 3 wins, but Stark County's got a very good offense.
21st consecutive season, the Stark County has made it to the playoffs, so congrats to them. All right, we got a 1-16 matchup here. Milledgeville taking on perennial power Ottawa Marquette. Guys, as always talked about in the NCAA basketball tournament, if this will be the year a 16 seed beats a 1 seed. I don't think this will be the year, but any chance Milledgeville pulls off an upset?
Well, they're going to need a lot of things to go their way. They've got Braxton Flynn, who's their best rusher. Ottawa Marquette, though, 42+ in every game, 5 shutouts. They've gone over. They've gone double nickel 6 times or more. They are a very good team as a 1 seed. Milledgeville's got their work cut out for them, but that's why they play football. Anything can happen.
I love Milledgeville. They're one of my favorite schools to go out with. They got the big missile out in front of the school. I'm glad you're in the playoffs. I was so sad to see you playing Ottawa Marquette because that is going to be a tough test.
Milledgeville started off with 4-1 and then tailed off and barely. They were trailing Warren last night 8-0 before coming back to win 20-16. They're battle tested. Last night if they didn't win, they weren't going to go to the playoffs. So maybe that will help them. They've played games that they've had to win to get in, and Ottawa Marquette has pretty much cruised. They won 51-14 over Chicago Hope, and that was Hope's only loss.
All righty, guys. Any final thoughts here?
Yeah, let's talk quickly about Bureau Valley. They've got a great quarterback, Drake Davis. This year he was on a 7-on-7 team, the Midwest Boom. They were number 1 in the nation. They won 2 tournaments, including one in Arlington at Jerry World at the Cowboys' home. Drake Davis is outstanding. Over 1,500 passing yards, 19 touchdowns. He's had 7 touchdowns in the last 2 games. He's also got 924 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns. So 30 total touchdowns from this one player, over 2,500 total yards. His favorite receiver is Brian Herr. Jay Edelson last night caught 3 touchdowns. Bureau Valley is a scary team. Now, Lee Wynn, they have 3 running backs. They have rushed for over 550 yards and 6 touchdowns. They could give them a test because Bureau Valley's defense is not as set up as their offense. But when you have Drake Davis, who's one of the best quarterbacks, and he's only a junior, so he'll be back next year, they could really do things with their offense. And we talk about defense all the time, but they've got an offense that can beat the defense. And if Bureau Valley wins and they upset Stockton because that game would be in Manlius, Bureau Valley could be making a run deep.
They're a team that needs to find their identity, and they need some consistency. And if they do that, then they could be a team to watch out. I think they got a good shot at Lee Wynn. But we'll see. We'll see what Bureau Valley team is. The Bureau Valley team that beat St. Bede, or the Bureau Valley team that kind of fell on their face on a couple of games.
A lot of good quarterbacks this year in the Illinois side of things.
Yeah, we've been very blessed with good quarterbacks, and also this is good. I think we've got an excellent season, excellent playoff season. There's going to be a lot of games that are going to be astounding. Like last night, I was thinking about There were 3 games. Ridgewood United, both of those teams didn't make the playoffs, but that game was outstanding game. The game that Kevin was at, Sterling DeKalb, the Rockridge Grove out, and the Rockridge Kiwanee game, just outstanding end of the season. And if the playoffs are anything like that, oh my goodness, we are going to have some thrillers in the state tournament.
A quick shout out to Princeton. Great season, finishing above 500. Kind of a shame that you were one of the about 10 that were left out with 5 wins, but
They
it
played
happens.
really well. Towards the end of the season, they played really well. And last year they missed. Last year they went 9-0, and this year they had most of that team graduate, and they still came out 5-4.
Yep.
Alrighty, sounds good. So make sure to stay tuned here at TV6 for all of your playoff coverage. For Brian Stocking, Kevin Core, I'm Andrew Ward. Enjoy the playoffs, everyone.